These are pictures taken in 2016 of a raised garden I made. I got the inspiration to make it when someone shared these images with me. While I appreciated what I saw, I knew I could make it bigger, badder, and more awesome. Unfortunately, as a result of one major design flaw, possibly some other little ones, and the test of time, 4 years later, upgrades and repairs are necessary. The deterioration, while predictable, is not any less disappointing. As mentioned earlier, it was one major design error combined with the method of construction that resulted in the destruction. If we look at the image, in order to facilitate a sleek exterior look with no visible screws, I use a Kreg jig to toenail the boards into place as shown by the arrows. For the actual gardening purpose, in order to reduce weight and save on material, we raised the garden bed 18 inches. All of the drainage rock and dirt would rest at the height of the 2x4 highlighted in the image. This is where the design failed. Whether it was an oversight or ignorance, the result was the same. The failure to put upright support under the raised bed and rely on screws to hold up 6 inches of drainage rock and 1.5 feet of soil proved detrimental. As you can imagine, within the year, the rock and soil fell, removing the 18-inch gap. The following year, instead of repairing the problem, I simply added more dirt. For 2 seasons, this was acceptable, but following the 3rd season, when the weather got cold, my error was exposed. With all 3 feet of garden area filled with rock and dirt, the moisture became trapped. When the weather got cold, expansion pushed out the sidewalls, and the toenail boards did not have the ability to resist the force. Now that we've explained the situation, let's discuss a solution to upgrade and repair. My first step is to remove the decorative ledge, as it was a needless accessory. With this ledge gone, we will increase the growing space by 4.5 inches around the whole garden. As I dismantle the ledge, you can see more examples of how I utilize the Kreg jig to toenail boards. Realizing that toenailing the exterior deck boards was no longer an option, I'm going to use rip cedar 2x4s sistered to the structure's 4x4s to offer a place to screw the exterior cedar decking securely to the structure. This will become clearer shortly. To accomplish this, I will first cut the 2x4s to the desired length. I will then measure the width I need the 2x4s ripped to. In this case, it looks like 1 3/8 inches. I then run the 2x4 through the table saw twice to get 2 pieces from every 1 piece of 2x4. I then attach the ripped 2x4s to the 4x4. As you can now see, with every corner fitted with a ripped 2x4 board, we will be able to secure the cedar decking from the exterior and no longer rely on the toenailed boards. At the beginning of day 2, with the GoPro battery dead, we began assembling the structure to raise the garden bed 18 inches. Because this portion of the build will not be in contact with the rock or soil, I chose to use pressure-treated lumber to save a little money. This concluded weekend number 1. The following weekend, I started by attaching the cedar decking to the structure with the 1 5/8 ceramic-coated exterior screws. Here I will give a little explanation of the process.
Alright, well, the next thing we're going to go over here is this guy. This is a template I made to make my life easier because I'm doing something very repetitive. I'm putting in 2 screws into every board, okay? And rather than sit here with a tape measure and mark out so I can make it nice and neat, what I did was I took one piece of wood and cut it the size of the board. I put 2 screws in, just enough that I get little pinpoints there, so that way when I hold this up against a piece of wood, and then notice how I gave it an arrow just to give it that much more consistency, if you can see that. And then that way when I hold that up here like this, I press in on it like so, and I end up with 2 marks, if you will, and actually indentations, which makes it nice when I go to screw the screw in. So that's definitely expedited this whole process of trying to put all these screws in. With old wood, it's hard to avoid that splintering or that splitting of the wood. In order to avoid that sometimes, if you start with your drill in reverse, it'll help build up some heat. So you kind of push in and you can almost start to see smoke. Okay, and then you go to forward. The hotness or the heat built up on the screw tip helps it dig in a little bit better without splitting the wood. It doesn't always work, but most of the time.
Having completed screwing in the exterior boards, I focused my attention to righting a wrong and supplying upright supports to the raised garden bed. As you can see, at every foundation block, we've added a 2x4 upright support to carry the weight of the rock and soil. I also included some supports in the center of the longer spans. I believe these additions will keep the beds from collapsing, which will allow moisture to drain into the 18-inch void below. In theory, this should help prevent expansion as a result of freezing. Lastly, before we finished up our second weekend, I placed some of the cedar boards in place to demonstrate how the raised bed's floor is constructed. It is on this surface that landscaping fabric, drainage rock, and soil will be placed. So long for now. I will continue to upgrade, repair, and share the process next week. Thanks for watching.